Okay. Well, look, I found Keith Tracton at WBC. What brings you here, Keith?
A car.
Okay. It's okay, man. Keith, let's talk about this. Okay. World at War 85.
Yeah, this is the first volume in the World at War 85 series. I apologize. I get really specific about this stuff because
that's fine. That's fine.
So the series that we've started is World at War 85. This is the first game in the series, Storming the Gap. This particular big map here is one of the expansions that came up on the Kickstarter. We had a Kickstarter for this process.
And you're saying this is available, this is what's going to come with the game?
If you back the Kickstarter, you're getting this expansion.
That's ridiculous.
Okay? There were 2 expansions and a bunch of little things that we packed into the expansions for Kickstarter.
Okay.
And that means that you get the base game, which is Storming the Gap. You get, this is called the Defense of Frankfurt expansion, because this particular configuration of these 8 maps, because these are actually 8 maps, even though they printed them as one piece for WBC here. WBC. But it's 8 maps. And in this specific configuration, since they're geomorphic, you can use them anyway, it represents an actual piece of terrain in the folded gap, and I could point it at you on a map if I had to, because I work from an army map, basically.
I mean, this is a gorgeous map, seriously.
Thank you, thank you. And truth to be told, we're in, you know, it's at the printer basically. So the printers, they're handling issues with production. So I'm the designer, developer. I've handed it off to the production team at Lock and Load Publishing because that's what they do. They're the publisher. They're working with the printer. It's at the printer. They're working through the usual. This is the usual stuff they work with the printers. We weren't able to get the actual maps in time for WBC.
Okay.
But what David Heath did was we have the art. We took the art for these 8 maps, put them in the specific configuration for these 2 scenarios that come with it.
Yeah.
And he printed up on vinyl and he made it huge.
Man, it's gorgeous.
Thank you. And we played on it. We've been playing on it for days. We're playing on it still now. They're playing at the other end of the table. And it's just, I like it. It's really nice. But the idea is that there's the main game, there's this expansion, there's a Storm and Steel expansion, which adds the Czechs and additional West German troops.
And this is all going to come out at the same time?
This is all going to come out. If you back the Kickstarter, you're getting all this stuff. So I get you know what? This blew me away because when we started to count up the maps we have, the base game has 3 maps. There was a Kickstarter expansion. It's actually 4. So if you buy the game down the road, it's going to be 4.
So man, from
this expansion, these are 8. That's 12.
Yeah.
Storm and Steel has 3 more. Okay, that's 15 maps. Just in the base game, geomorphic, so you can swing them around any way you want, as long as you match a short side to a short side or a long side to a long side. You can have any configuration you want.
Now, you know, how, from inception, and first of all, why did you choose this, like, this type of game? What I mean to say is, why did you?
Me personally,
an alternative history type game.
I'm a big fan of platoon level games.
Okay.
This sort of intrigued me because I just got into the, you know, Lock and Load had an old series, and I got into that, and then behind the scenes they changed ownership to David Heath now.
Right.
David wanted to, you know, basically rework this and make it something that you know is really spectacular.
Well,
you know,
yeah,
I don't use that word myself, but that's what, you know, he says. And so we spent a lot of time doing it. He gave me a lot of leeway.
Okay.
Because I said to him, I'm not doing this under a deadline. I don't have that kind of time, first of all.
Right, I understand.
But if you give me the time, we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
And it turned out to be this.
Now, Keith, is there anything you want to talk about specifically here?
I think one of the things I want to let people know, because there's a lot of people who played the old game, and this is not it. You know, it is, but it isn't. That's what we say. It's familiar, but different. It is the same scale, it is the same sequence of play, it is the same, you know, combat system is on the counters. We have additional things that make it easy to play, but we streamlined the values. We tore the values down and we built them back up into what they are, where they are based on metrics and based on an algorithm that really shows you, I think, a little bit better what the interaction of all these weapon systems were at the platoon level. Okay. It's not an individual tank game. It's not MBT, much as I love MBT. Okay. I'm playing in a tournament later. But it is a platoon level game where you have a group of tanks or vehicles or infantry.
Platoon level, each counter, how many, like infantry?
So like an infantry counter, an infantry platoon, anywhere from 30 to 50 depending on the nationality.
Okay.
A tank platoon, anywhere from 3 to 5 vehicles, again, depending on the nationality.
Okay. So I mean, it's got that tactical feel still, right?
It is. Yeah, it's platoon level tactical.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're making decisions on basically how to use your platoons tactically.
Right.
It's an intense game. If you just pay attention, most of these scenarios will go down to the last turn.
Okay.
As an example, there's 2 scenarios that come with this big giant map, this defensive Frankfurt, actually 8 maps, like I said, that configure. The first scenario is the Soviet attack, and this scenario they're playing now is the American counterattack. But we laid it out and we decided we're going to play this through, and we had people swapping in and swapping out. They had other tournaments and things like that, but we always had somebody playing one side or another for, you know, a couple of days. We were playing a very casual rate, telling stories of development, you know, kibitzing about things, joking and everything. So, you know, we weren't on a time scale or anything.
Okay.
It doesn't take days to play that scenario. It doesn't.
All right.
But what we found was that it's a 20-turn scenario with, you know, a dozen or more, a couple of dozen formations in it.
Okay.
And it came down to the last turn, and NATO won because one M113, which is a transport, it's not a combat unit per se, has a machine gun, you know, was in 1 hex that needed to be cleared. All of that down to 1 hex on the last turn. It doesn't get any closer than that.
Now, I see cards. This is not a card-driven game. This is a card-assisted game.
It's a card-assisted game. The cards represent the formations, and it's a variation on the chit pull theme that everybody uses, basically.
Okay.
So we use cards because we want to have the information be bigger, be able to be seen. We want to have a color code. We want to have things like the morale training value, the command range. We want to have that readily available by the side of the map and nice and big.
Okay.
Also, it allowed us to remove some information off of the headquarters pieces.
Okay. Now, is this a very counter-heavy game?
No. Some people think that, you know, that having, you know, you might end up with markers. You might have 5 or 6 in a stack. I tend to use the markers off to the side. Okay. For me, a counter-dense game is like, you know, you got 10, 12 in a counter, right. 10 in a stack, and there's multiple stacks like that. No.
So what I'm looking at here is what the camera can't pick up because we have a still thing. What I'm looking at here, this is a normal type.
That's a normal game because stacking's only 2 units plus whatever markers for status.
Okay. But this game that they're playing right now is fairly large.
It's
in terms of map size.
Yeah, it's the whole map. It's the whole map. So what you can see on the camera is the top, I guess, quarter. So it goes another, you know, there's 2 maps side by side. It goes another 3 sections down there.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take pictures of it and put it up so we're going to see that.
Yeah, so you can see that. But yeah, but you can see the units are fairly spread out.
Yeah.
Because you're in a range of 150 yards a hex.
Okay.
So yeah, it's these weapon systems that could go 2,000 and 3,000 yards. You get some spreading out.
Now, are there any special fun units here, like really deadly fun units?
There's lots of fun units, but one of the things that's actually fun in this is the armor's fun, period. It's basically an armor game.
Okay.
There's helicopters, they're always fun.
All right.
I find the infantry fun because 1985 infantry was perfectly capable of handling armor, you know, in its elements.
All right.
And could move faster than tankers expect they could. And I verified that with a friend of mine who led an infantry platoon in 1985, and I asked him certain questions about the scale and how fast they could move, and he's like, yeah, we could absolutely do that. And I'm like, well, can you keep that up for, like, a scenario could be hours and hours. I'm like, can you keep, you know, moving as fast as that and fighting at the end of your move and everything? How long can you keep that up? He's like, all day long.
Okay.
But there's artillery. I think my friend Nate Rogers described it once. He was watching us play the largest scenario in the game. Well, this is now the largest scenario in the game. Before we had the Kickstarter, when we were demoing, and he's like, there are tanks crashing, there are anti-tank guided missiles flying, there are surface-to-air missiles flying, there's anti-aircraft guns going, there's helicopters with miniguns, there's artillery blasting, there's infantry fights, there's tank fights, there's AFV, and he's like, there's so much going on, and we kind of feel that. Well, I mean, that's when we play. That's why we kind of get sucked in, because, yeah, this guy may not be able to, you know, dig this guy out, but if you bring up your infantry or you bring up this armor supported by whatever you can, you start thinking tactically almost right out of the gate. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, he can correct me if I'm wrong on that. You start thinking tactically right out of the gate because the game itself, the mechanics, it's a moderate complexity game. It's not a difficult game.
Low complexity, mild complexity?
Moderate complexity.
And
moderate complexity to me is you've got a bunch of simple systems,
right,
and the combat system's on the counter.
Right.
It's a die 6 system.
Okay.
So I might roll 3 dice, and I might have to make a 5 or 6 to get a hit. Each 5 or 6 I roll on those 3 gets a hit.
Right.
You might roll armor in defense and have 3 dice to make 5 or 6 in defense. I make 2 hits, you make 1 save, net result, 1 hit. That's the combat system.
Is this soloable?
Oh, totally.
That's good for me.
All right, now it's totally
because I can't find anybody to play. He doesn't want to play with me. You want to play with me?
Yeah, sure. We'll play on that.
I don't want to play with you. Go.
It's totally solo friendly on 2 different levels. One is out of the box because you're picking formation cards.
Okay, so there's no solo module for that.
No, there is. No, it's at 2 levels. Give me level 1. All right. So level 1 is out of the box. You pick a formation, you go with that formation. Now, some people don't want to, pick the next formation as an enemy. Some people don't want to change their brain to the other side. I completely understand that. My brain's already split in too many pieces at this point. There is a solo part of the Kickstarter, which will be available separately after the Kickstarter, is a solo assistant. Now, it's not an AI, it's an assistant because it's not a complicated game. It doesn't really need much of an AI. But what it does do is allows you to sit down, pick a card for the format. You pick the enemy. You say let's say the Soviets are the enemy. So now they're the ones who are being run by the solo cards. When a Soviet formation card comes up, you pick a solo card, check their off-board artillery. Then you pick a solo card, and it tells you roughly what they do depending on what their tactical situation is.
And who did the solo module?
We did the solo module. Me and Jeff Schulte. Me and Jeff. No, I'm sorry. It's me and David Heath and Jeff. I guess Jeff Schulte had some input.
Okay. Is there any similarities?
Blackwell Herd.
Are there any similarities or other solo modules?
Yes. Yeah. It's similar to Lock and Load Tactical Solo.
Okay.
Literally, the graphical design as well. I think we owe an homage to Academy Games.
Right. Okay.
They have a solo system that I believe was licensed from.
Yeah.
But we modify. It's modified to fit Lock and Load Tactical Solo. All right. This is modified for World at War 85 and Nations at War, which is the World War II series that is similar to this.
You mean the one that's already out?
Yes, the one that's already out.
So it's going to be compatible with that.
It is compatible with that. Yes, because the mechanism is the same. The combat system's on the counters, and you pick formation. Well, you pick chits in there, but there's formation cards available for those who want to replace the chits. But yeah, you use that to basically assist you to play solo. Now, what I did when I got to WBC was I was waiting for Patrick's running this game over here. I was waiting for Patrick to come because we were going to play. And last year, if I'd done that, because we were developing the solo assistant for the Kickstarter, so I had to get that done before the Kickstarter. But we didn't have it last year because it was sort of a rapid idea. Last year, if I had sat down, I just have to play solitaire and pick formation cards. This year, I had the solo deck with me. So I sat down with the solo assistant. I said, I will play solo until Patrick shows up. And that's exactly what happened. I started playing a couple of turns. And I love the solo assistant because, I'll play it either way, but I love the solo assistant because then I can just say, hey, I'm justified in doing this. And the thing about the solo assistant is, it doesn't play like you or me. It just doesn't. It will surprise you. It may look dumb on the surface, but when the M1s that are M1 Abrams tanks out there charge you, which is something I wouldn't do, versus sitting there and picking you off, and then that charge succeeds, you're like, how could that possibly have worked? It doesn't play like you or me. That, I think, is its strength, because you don't want an assistant to be predictable,
Now, Keith, setup time, average setup time per scenario?
If you have a one-map scenario, you're going to be setting up in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Scenario like this, maybe half an hour, depending on how well you know the game.
So average play time?
If you have a one-map scenario, can take anywhere from an hour to 2. Probably. We have in Storming the Gap itself, there are 21 scenarios. Actually, the box says 20, but there's 21 because we added the Kickstarter scenario secretly. We give you a schedule of these are 1-mappers, 2-mappers, and 3-mappers. That's generally how long they take, and also which are the starter scenarios where there's a minimum of forces, there's a minimum of formations, so you can get in quickly. The smaller scenario, we deliberately weighted towards the 1-mappers because a lot of people just want to play this quickly. They don't want to sit down and play a 15-hour scenario like this, which you can play at a convention. They want to play a game and they want to have some action and they want to get it done. So you put a 1-map scenario down and you're done in an hour or 2.
Now, are we going to get the same type of support on Lock and Load Publishing as they do with their tactical system for this game?
Totally. Online is the rules. The rules are available now, actually, online. My understanding is, and I'm not the best part on this, but there are videos that you can see playthroughs of scenarios right now. There are basic videos that are getting up there. There will be boot camp videos that are finalized. So people have been working on that. So we're going to have all the video support for that.
GIMPY's doing the boot
GIMPY
camp
Gamer,
videos.
he's doing the boot camp videos.
Nice, GIMPY.
Hey, GIMPY. And so yeah, it's going to be fully supported. So.
And okay, so
and of course the Lock and Load forums.
Are there any other I know this is a lot of work. Actually, I don't know it's a lot of work, but I can imagine.
I will honestly tell you it's a lot of work.
Okay, so are there any plans for the future on this system other than what we have right now?
Yes. The initial plan was for 8 volumes.
Seriously?
Okay, and
how do you project that?
Well, what we sort of had hints from the old system of where people wanted to go, and we collected different articles and modules and things that didn't really stand alone well, and collected them into the volumes. Each volume, by the way, is going to be a standalone game.
So this is your day job, right?
No, it's not my day job. That's why it took so long. But the idea is each is a standalone game, so that if you don't want, say, the eventual Israeli-Syrian volume, you don't have to buy that one. But you'll get everything you need to play whatever is out of the box. Now, expansions specifically, like this, and Storm and Steel, that also this, they may use maps and counters from the game that they are an expansion from. So always in the same world, eh? Yes. So if this is an expansion for Storming the Gap, you only need Storming the Gap to play it. You don't need another volume and never will. If an expansion is for a specific game, it's just for that specific game. So if you don't want the expansion, you don't have to have the expansion.
Now, are you ever going to go out of this world and do this system like on a World War II type theme? Vietnam?
Well, we have World War II as Nations at War.
Ah, okay, sorry.
It's not the same game because the weapons systems, but they're very similar.
Okay.
But as far as Vietnam or something like that, as far as the Vietnam War, I don't know.
Okay.
I can honestly say I don't know. I can think of half a dozen genres to adapt this into.
Right.
I'd love to do like.
I mean, that was my question initially.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I haven't even told David this is like, I'd love to do a science fiction version, but.
And.
I haven't broken it to him yet. I got to do this first. I'm like, this is pretty big. Yeah, I think if I took time off to do it, I have to take time off for other things, but if I took time off to do something else like that, it's like people would scream at me.
So is there anything you want to say that I haven't asked you? Any important facts? Like, you got $50 from me? Nothing, go ahead.
I usually do. No, I don't. So, well, I want to tell you about a couple of little things that also come with the expansion. We have these data cards, for example, which
they look pretty nice, man.
But the one thing is they have a picture of the counter. They're basically by unit type, and we've had this sort of minis crossover. But in the meantime, one of the things that we tried to correct was making the values of the counters very readable. Still, we're all getting older. Sometimes we need it even bigger. These data cards sort of came up as a minis thing where you can adapt, because there were minis guys who wanted to adapt this to minis, and it's easy to do. So we put like the minis scales, some mini scales on the bottom and the ranges, so you don't have to convert, it's right there. But we put a big picture of the counter front and back.
It looks really nice.
And so that makes it, so that, if you just want to be able to see the counter and you don't want to reach across the map, like it's a big map, you pick up your thing and you know what your values are. And you might have, depending on how many unit types on the side, you might have to fish through it a little bit, or you can pick up the counter and look at it. It's pretty big. So we're trying to do as many different ways as people to be able to access it and not have to worry about it. So.
Hey, thanks, man.
Hey, thank you.
Sorry for bothering you.
Not a bother at all. You kidding me? Anytime.
Okay. Is the check in the mail?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Was it enough zeros?